So hello everyone, I am really excited to be here today. Today is such a big day. Who was here last night? I had so much fun. Oh, heaps of you were here last night and we just got a little taste. But today we'll have a whole day and an evening. It's going to be absolutely amazing today. We have one contest. And this one is the big one, the International Speech Contest. I don't know where the contestants are, but I'm sure they'll show up pretty soon. So this person who wins this contest, and good luck to the judges because they're all fine examples of our best speakers in our district. They'll go on to represent District 73 on the big stage towards the World Championship of Public Speaking. So whoever that person is today, we're going to wish them well. So we've got one of them. We've got two public speaking experts today, Charlie Starrett and Mike Carr, who will be delivering keynotes and workshops. And we will learn so much from them and draw upon their experiences. So that'll be wonderful. We have 3 networking opportunities. Yes, we've got morning tea, afternoon tea and lunch. So all of you, that's what they are, they're networking opportunities. You can go out there and not only get a nice cup of tea and something to eat, but meet other fellow Toastmasters. When we're in our clubs, we're in our little tiny bubble, but you will go out and say, hey, this is really a big organisation of wonderful, caring, supporting people. So go out there, network with them. I challenge you to talk to someone you've never spoken to before. And then there's the district council meeting, where you won't see 4, but you'll see many, many Toastmasters who have made the most of their Toastmastering and become great leaders. And also we will be voting in for the next year of the district leaders who will lead our district for the coming year. So that's really, really exciting. So if your momentum isn't shifted by all of this, I suggest you check to see that you have a pulse. So here's a question. What if the biggest communication challenge you face isn't what you say, but who you are? Fellow Toastmasters, this question is at the heart of this morning's keynote. We live in a world that often celebrates the people with the loudest voices in the room. But what about the quiet ones? The thinkers, the listeners, the ones who need time to process before they speak. Because whether if you recharge in a crowded room or the quiet of your own bat cave, there's a gap in how you've been wired and how the world expects you to show up. Today's speaker knows that gap firsthand, from a nervous guest speaker on local radio to governing on the Toastmasters International Board, the big one in America. Charlie Starrett has built leadership on one thing about not pretending to be somebody else, but being more of who he is. And I'm delighted to announce that he will be launching his book, GPS, Guide to Public Speaking. So please welcome him to bridge the gap for all of us. Charlie Starrett, Mind the Gap, Charlie Starrett.
Thank you so much. Beautiful. Thank you, Elaine, and thank you for being here this weekend. It really is an honour for me to be presenting to you. I remember a time many decades ago when I was elected to be president of my chess club at university. I'd never been president of anything, so I thought this would be good. I got elected, but what I didn't realise was that one thing I had to do after being elected was to give an acceptance speech. You can already feel what happened, right? And I attached something to that. that only through Toastmasters I came to resolve. And I'll get onto that in a moment. But first of all, I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you, if you identify as an extrovert, raise your hand. Excellent. If you identify as an introvert, raise your hand. Definitely more introverts in the room than extroverts. But one thing was really interesting, well, two things actually. One thing was really interesting there. Extroverts put their hands straight up. Introverts, that's normal, that's understandable, okay? And when Mike Carr was asking last night, for suggestions, I thought, that's interesting. I bet all those people who are shouting out suggestions are extroverts. Because that's what happens. But today we're going to take you on a journey, a train journey. Mind the Gap comes from, anyone know? Comes from the Tube in London, where there's one station which has got a big bend on it, and the announcement is, Mind the Gap. And so it's linked with trains in that way. But I think it is important because we need to mind the gap between introverts and extroverts. And I want to explain what I'm going to be doing today with regard to that. So first of all, let me give you an overview. What is an introvert and extrovert? That's really important that we know and how we get there. The second thing is, how did we get to where we are today, where the extrovert is the ideal? Okay, and the third thing is how Toastmasters can help you. And this is the big one. That's why we're all here. So there's those three parts to it. And I'm going to be taking you on this journey, and I'm going to be stopping 3 times. So the first stop is, what is an extrovert and introvert? And I think the best way you can ask yourself is by saying, where do I get my energy from? Is it from being on my own, in my back cave? Is it from being around people, being gregarious and social? Does that top me up? And where do I go to recharge? Do I go to a big party and I get my energy back? Or do I go back to my room to be with my own thoughts and my own ideas? So you can tell already there's a big difference between your energy and where you go to recharge. And that basically will help you decide whether you fit on the more extroverted side or the more introverted side. And there's no such thing as a pure introvert or a pure extrovert. If there was such a person, they'd be in the lunatic asylum. So we've all got bits of each in us, okay? And for those introverts who join Toastmasters like me to become more better at speaking, better at public speaking, you can see that there are bits in me that are coming up that have been suppressed beforehand. And getting back to that president story, what I discovered when I did my first MBTI, that Myers-Briggs personality test, was that I was on the I side. I was on the introvert side. And I thought to myself, that explains why I couldn't speak when I was president. And I'd attach something to that. And I think society attaches something to that. And I think what it is it's actually shame. I see a few nods, so I see people are agreeing with that. You have this sense of shame that you're not gregarious, you're not out there, you're not like a social butterfly. Why am I not like that? And that shame is very debilitating because it kind of defines who you are. It's really hard to shake. But I'm very pleased to say that Toastmasters has helped do that for me. Let me give you a typical example so you can tell the difference between introvert and extrovert. Just this. I'm staying in tonight. Now imagine, both of you were invited out to a party on Friday, and then you get the news that I'm really sorry that the party's been cancelled. For the extrovert, they're saying, I'm staying in tonight. I'm not going to get my fix. But the introvert say, yes, I'm staying in tonight. I can read my book. Two very different responses. And I'm sure you can identify with that. You know, when that happens, you go, oh, it's a silent relief that it has been cancelled. So that helps to set the scene. People say that introverts are antisocial. They're not. That is wrong. They are deeply social, but their version of being social is very different to an extrovert's version of being social. They are very deeply social in the sense that they love books because they're in the world of their mind. Their mind is very rich, very active, and they're imagining things in their mind, and so they love books. And I love this hugging of a book. It's beautiful. So they are learning about the world not from being a social butterfly, but from reading. And extroverts, on the other hand, are very gregarious. They're very out there. So extroverts prefer the breadth of topics. Introverts prefer the depth and maybe one-on-one. You know, I've had some great one-on-one conversations already with people. And that's the way we operate. We're just differently social. But what about an extrovert? Well, let me give you the example. I actually see some vigorous nodding. I don't know whether that's from the extroverts or the introverts finally being heard, but this is true. This is absolutely true. It doesn't mean that there's anything bad about it. It just is normal because they have a shorter pathway from their thinking to their mouth. For an extrovert, it has to go a much longer way. They have to go back into the past memories and make sense. Is there any patterns there? And then come out with a response. So it takes them longer. And I'll explain why I'm going to suggest a couple of things in Toastmasters that will help you with that. So it's funny, but it's true. And you may be wondering, how on earth did we get to understand introverts and extroverts? And I'll just briefly cover that, because many years ago, in the 1980s, there was a guy called Jerome Kagan, and he started a longitudinal study. And he studied, at the beginning, 4-month-old babies. And he put them in a room, and he had lots of sounds and noises and even smells. And he observed, and they basically fell into two groups. Now, I'm going to ask you a question here in a minute. So the first group were, like, all over the place. Their little legs and arms were going, and they were screaming, and their heart rate was going. And over here was the other group, and they were just sort of, it was interesting. Popping balloons, colours, smells, and all the rest of it. Which one of those groups? So, I'm going to ask you, which one of those groups do you think was the extrovert? Okay, who thinks this group was the extroverts? No. Who thinks this group was the extroverts? Yes.
I think they were ADHD.
Indeed. Well, I will tell you something, because that's a very common thought, to think that this is the group that is more extroverted, and that the group is more extroverted. It was actually the quiet group that were more extroverted. Why? Because they had a lower level of arousal. Their baseline of arousal was low, so they had a lot of capacity for stimulus. Make sense? The introvert group had a higher baseline of arousal, of stimulus, so they needed a smaller amount of stimulus on top before it tipped them over. This is what happens when introverts come to social gatherings. They've got that little bit filled, they'll need to go back and recharge to get their energy back. So that study was done over 18 years. He followed them through for 18 years, and it proved itself. Very, very interesting. I'll give you an example here of a little girl. She's probably about, 4 years old, and her mum is asking her, "Hannah, did you have a nice time?" And watch her expression, and maybe what she says.
Did you have fun, Hannah? Yeah? What was the best part?
You can see it in her face. She was desperate to get back. That's what partying and too much socializing does for introverts. It causes that kind of thing. Even her expression on her face was so delightful. Leaving was the best part. I love that. I really enjoyed that. So that's about the introvert and the extrovert, a bit about the definition. And the next bit is about how did we get here? I don't mean Glen Waverley. I mean to society, where we go, why is the extrovert the ideal? Why is that? Because that's only a recent thing, believe it or not. At the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, there was a perfect storm. I'm talking about the US here, of urbanization, growth of big business, and mass immigration. Those three things. So what did that mean? That meant people came from villages and towns and from overseas where they were known. They were known long term. They were known for the content of their character. When you get a lot of people in one place at one time, you're working in big businesses, you're working in fairly anonymous offices, you are anonymous. So you need to stand out. You need to promote yourself, otherwise you're just like everybody else. And that basically set the scene for the extrovert ideal, because the more people talked, the more they were seen as competent. And there's absolutely no correlation between that whatsoever. But they got promoted, and so then they promoted people who were also talkative and all the rest of it. And so it moved from the content of your character to a culture of personality. And that's exactly where we are still, more than 100 years on. So that's a little bit about, how we got to where we are. And the introverts are still sitting in their offices, their open plan offices, which would be a thing of torture to me, where they're sitting there, this one person who's in an office, and all around you've got people making noises and interrupting and all the rest of it. It's a nightmare for introverts. Open plan offices are absolute nightmare. Just like I don't like open plan houses. I like to have rooms. I don't know if that makes me weird, but I'd prefer to have rooms where I can go and be. Okay, so that's a little bit about how we got to where we are, and now how Toastmasters can help you. This is the bit you're all waiting for. Well, I believe that Toastmasters is set up beautifully. In every club program, in your club program, think about two segments that are in there that are perfect for one group or the other. All right, when we're thinking about minding that gap and bridging that gap. So what can introverts engage themselves in the club program that is going to really help move the needle so that they can act more extroverted? Anyone? Evaluation. Anyone else? Table topics. Yeah, okay. Table topics is good because, unlike, that's almost like a photograph of me in my first table topics. You have to learn how to speak off the cuff in front of a group of people while making something up and making it make sense and structure it, okay? It's really good for introverts to take on that extrovert skill. And for extroverts, there's another section, which is evaluation. Evaluating, it means, and I remember this from a while ago, I don't know whether it's still the case, but in Toastmasters you have this, it's like a motto almost. It was called better. Anyone remember it?
Listening.
Better listening, better thinking, better speaking, better listening, better thinking, better speaking. Can we all say that? Better listening, better thinking, better speaking. So what that means is it's actually in that order. So you can't just give a quick reaction to someone's speech. You have to listen to it, You have to think about it. You have to think about the purpose of it and how they came across, and then you speak. Then you get up to speak. So this is a really, really, really good skill for extroverts if they need to retrain that impulse to say things, okay? So evaluation is really, really good for that. And there's another aspect of Toastmasters which I would really encourage. When you're in your club, and I know a lot of you have been in the clubs a while and you've been on the club executive, but I want people to think about two roles, the Sergeant-at-Arms role and the President's role. Right, the Sergeant-at-Arms role, you get to set up the room for other people. You take into account their AV requirements, whatever it may be, the seating and so on. You get to set up that room. What does that mean? What are you learning? You're learning how to set up the room for yourself. So when you get up to speak, you know exactly how you want your room set up, just like I did today. So that is a really, really important skill you're learning. Plus, you get to speak twice at every meeting. Again, you're getting up in front of a group and you're speaking. It may be rehearsed, it may be welcome to country, doesn't matter. So Sergeant-at-Arms has that very, very important learning in it for you. So you're learning to set the room up for yourself later on. The other role is the President. Now, the President obviously gets up a couple of times a meeting. What a great opportunity to set the tone for the meeting, for your club. But also, the President gets to run executive meetings with his group. There's 7 of you. So what can the President do? I would say that the President can make his agenda introvert-friendly. Be introvert aware. Send out the agenda beforehand. So the introvert can look at it and think about it and get their heads around what's coming up, right? So you set the agenda, you send the agenda early. You then, at the meeting, you have ground rules for how you will hold the meeting. And the important ground rules, really, you need to establish. One is that all items on the agenda are discussed, and items not on the agenda are not discussed, because you'll always get someone, almost always get someone coming in with another item that they suddenly want to talk about because they've just thought about it. So it's up to you as the chair of that meeting to say, sorry, but you had an opportunity to contribute to the agenda, that will go on the next agenda. Because the worst thing I found from club meetings was AOB, any other business. It's like a lead balloon. It's just when you think you're finishing on time, it's, oh yes, I've just got one other thing to say, and it just becomes so heavy. So very small AOBs, maybe 2 minutes long. The other thing you can do is, just like on a Toastmasters meeting, everything is timed. All right? When I joined my executive as secretary, I saw that nothing was timed. And the meeting went on and on and on. There was no end time. So I became very clear about the meeting starts at this time and the meeting ends at that time. You have to respect people's time. They're all volunteers, right? The second thing you do is for each segment, each item on the agenda, you have a time. This is going to take 2 minutes. This is going to take 3 minutes. The meaty bit that we need to discuss, I'll give it 20 minutes. I'll put it in the middle. You know, just so you're thinking about what realistically is going to be the flow of the agenda, like a bell curve. So think about that. That will make things much more palatable for introverts. So we've covered 3 things today. What's an introvert and extrovert? How did we get to the extrovert ideal? And how Toastmasters can help you. There's many other ways, of course. But one thing that I'd like to finish up with is that, remember that story of me as the president of the chess club, and I had to give this speech. And I had shame attached to it, and then when I realised I was an introvert, I thought, oh, no wonder. Introverts equal shame. It's not the case at all. Introverts have got fantastic superpowers, especially of listening. So I decided that I would take that experience, which I've now put to bed, but I take that experience and put it into a book, because I think there's nothing better than to say, I'm going to write a book that I needed back then. That's where my motivation came from, so that other people don't have to struggle through the same false beliefs. And it's called GPS. It stands for Guide to Public Speaking, and it's a way of giving you direction on your journey. It's available outside. It will contain things like how to put out the wildfire of anxiety so that it doesn't consume your message. That's a big one. And also, the Olympic athlete protocol. And this one came from a lady I was coaching for her TEDx talk over 5 months. She came from could not present to very successful on the red carpet. And she came to me afterwards and she said, Charlie, I feel you've got me ready for my Olympic final. I peaked at just the right time. Absolutely true. She put everything together. So I put the Olympic athlete protocol in there so you can see how that was built up. So that will be outside. It's $25. It's a conference price. It's normally $29.95. And as a bonus, I thought, why not throw in, find your own unique speaking style, which is a 90-minute for $99 session with me. So you get the opportunity to discover, what are your strengths? How would you best come across? That's entirely up to you. It's normally $250, but today it's $99. So that'll be outside as well. And I want to end with these words, because when I talk about Mind the Gap, we often think about two different sets of people. But I'm about bringing people together. I'm about unifying people, not separating them. So you'll notice on the train lines that they converged. So this is bringing you closer to each other. And how you do that is by understanding who you are. When I said it, Elaine said at the beginning, it's not so much about what you say, it's who you are. It's understanding who you are, and it's understanding the other people, in your team, in your business, in your family. It's understanding how they operate and working to bridge that gap. So it's not about learning speaking techniques, it's about deciding, to make that difference. And I think for me as president, when I realised that I couldn't speak in front of people, apart from I might have said thank you, it's that gap is nowhere near as big anywhere except when you come up and step up to speak. That's when the gap is biggest. And that's where Toastmasters can help bridge that gap. So I hope you can take all of those lessons in, and I'm going to end with a poem called If. So again, it's not about the introvert team and the extrovert team. It's about what kind of human being you are, especially when the pressure's on. It's how you show up as a human being. And I think that's what Rudyard Kipling had in mind when he wrote this letter as a poem to his son. And he was talking basically about the values of life. And I want you to listen to the words, because they're very powerful. Don't think about them in relation to Rudyard Kipling's son, but in relation to yourselves, and maybe your people in your family and your friends. Okay, and I will end with the poem. When we finish, that's it, okay? So you know when to clap. Okay. If you can keep your head when all around are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you could trust yourself when all men doubt you, yet make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give in to hating, and yet don't look too good or talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can deal with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or see the things you built your life for broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one throw of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will that says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither loving friends nor foe can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And, which is more, you'll be a man, my son.